On day 30, we'll drive to Hannibal, Missouri, where we'll look around Samuel Clemens' sites. We'll look at his boyhood home, Becky Thatcher's home, a museum about his writings, and then spend the night at the Garth Woodside Inn, where he used to sleep. As we head out to Hannibal in the early morning, we notice that the tree leaves have started to turn, and they are so beautiful.
Daddy brought the baby to the windowsill to see a bit of heaven shoot across the sky. The one and only time Dad
Soon we cross the Mississippi River and head into Hannibal. We'll be parking near the levee, and if you notice, the floodgates are down as it's been flooding for a while. They're taking them out today. We'll buy our admission tickets and then head down Main Street to Mark Twain's Boyhood home. Samuel Clemens grew up in this area, and we're going to be looking around here for most of the morning. First we'll look at Huck Finn's home, then we'll move to Samuel Clemens' boyhood home, then to the museum and gift shop before heading to Becky Thatcher's house. Samuel Clemens' boyhood home is the white one on the right. This is an early view of it. And of course, if we're going to be here, we have to whitewash the fence. It's now time to take a tour of his boyhood home. He lived here from age 4 on until he became an adult and left. We'll be looking at his boy as a writer and as an author. First we head back to the Huckleberry Finn replica and look at it a while. Although it's not the original home and just a replica, it still gives us an idea of how the poor people might have lived.
She slept so sound. In 1986 that wish came round. It came from the east just as bright as a torch. She saw.
And this is a picture of the Huckleberry Finn home in 1885, and this is what it looks like here. We will continue our tour by watching a video about the house.
Escapades from that time led to many incidents in the adventures of Tom Sawyer. The house itself is Aunt Polly's house in the book. The first room you will enter is the dining room. Here Tom Sawyer took the dreaded painkiller medicine in the story and once fed some to Peter, the family cat, with dramatic results. Peter tore around the room and jumped out a window. The parlor served as a family room when Mr. Clemens met with business associates or Mrs. Clemens entertained friends. The story of Tom Sawyer starts with Aunt Polly at the door calling for Tom. The kitchen is missing many of today's familiar conveniences. Someone had to go to the town pump to obtain water for cooking.
I want to listen to this and get the interpretation.
The Clemens family owned a slave child to perform the menial household tasks. The mat on the kitchen floor was the bed, so the slave would be ready to start the fire for cooking breakfast and to do the daily chores. The upstairs back bedroom was the boys'. From here, Tom would sneak out to go play with Huckleberry Finn. In real life, Sam's younger brother Henry would lie in wait to get Sam in trouble when he returned after nocturnal excursions. The middle bedroom was probably the older sister Pamila's. Pamela was a musician and gave piano and guitar lessons to help the family income. The parents, John and Jane Clemens, used the front bedroom. In the story, Tom Sawyer came back from the island to overhear Aunt Polly and Mrs. Harper's despair when they thought the boys had drowned in the river. Unfortunately, we do not know of any possessions the Clemens family owned while living in the house. The rooms are furnished with period pieces and have statues of Mark Twain with quotes on childhood and Hannibal.
After we are through with the video, we'll step outside. This is the house that he grew up in on the right, and we'll be looking into it through glass partitions. First we'll look at the steps that Go upstairs, somebody's touching.
All the news and the rent comes due tomorrow. Lots of money in the bank, they say that's where
The front room of the house was the parlor, and this is where they entertained guests and business partners with their father.
Put more water in the soup, there's better times coming.
Next we come to the dining room.
Well, Mary Lou could pull a plow if only I would let her. Twice as strong as any ox, and she don't smell much better. I didn't kiss that Mary Lou but once, then I
And then in the far back we have the kitchen and the mat that the slaves slept on to start the fire each morning.
The old banjo, keep that guitar strumming. Put more water in the soup, there's better times coming.
Moving upstairs we have 3 bedrooms. The one in the far back is where the boys slept and where Samuel snuck out many times at night.
Till he run himself to death, so I brought him in for dinner. Cotton crops are mighty poor.
In the middle was Pamela's room. She was the eldest sister and the only sister to survive into adulthood. Then came a small closet and storage room. The front room was for their parents. Now it's time to move next door to the block house, which is a gift shop and museum. Samuel Langhorne Clemens was born in this house on November the 30th, 1835 in Florida, Missouri, and they lived in this house in Hannibal. This is his parents. He was the 6th of 7 children, only 3 of which, besides him, lived into adulthood. When Samuel was 11, his dad died, and he was apprenticed in the printing business. Later, his brother buys the Hannibal Journal, and he works for it before leaving in 1853 at 20 years old to seek his fortune in the world. He became a riverboat captain until the Civil War, then traveled around the world. He also was married to Olivia Langland in 1870, and they had several children. He started writing in 1876, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and published them a few years later. But in 1894, he was bankrupt, so he took a tour around the world. His wife dies in 1904. He had several daughters, including Susie and Jean. And these are some of his pictures as he grew older. He dies in 1910, on April 21st. He wrote of many different characters out west and in other stories. Can you remember all of them? And now it's time to move to the Becky Thatcher house. It's across the street from his house, and it's really where Laura Hawkins lived. She is the model for Becky Thatcher. And just like Huckleberry Finn fell in love with Becky Thatcher, Mark Twain fell in love with Laura Hawkins. This house has many displays of what a child's life would have looked like in Samuel Clemens' time. Here's a comparison between Laura Hawkins and Becky Thatcher. And here's a latter picture of her. This is the oldest picture of her house. And this is the schools that Mark Twain and she went to. As children in school, they followed many rules, and they were punished by dunce caps, standing on a block, and switching. Always write with your right hand up. And on his first day in school, the master had to switch him several times till he wore his arm out. We will now go next door to the Justice of the Peace Office for his father while he was still alive.
Shuffles out to the barn and hollers me out there. He points up to his saddle in that dusty hideaway. He says he'd like to give it to me, but he he might need it someday.
Mark Twain actually hid here one day and then found a corpse here. Scared him to death so much he climbed out the window, pulling the curtain with him. And this is the front of his office, which is across the street from Mark Twain's Boyhood home. We'll eat at the Mark Twain Dinette, just a block away from his house.
When the master's hands made this man, he put a cowboy in his soul.
Next, we'll walk back down to the downtown area along the river. The area we'll be walking in was flooding, and you can see how high the river is even still. But now the floodgates have been taken out because the water has gone down.
He put a cowboy in his soul.
This is where one of the floodgates would have been. And this is a statue of him as a riverboat captain. Now we head to the Mark Twain Museum, which is basically about his writings and not his life.
Mama, I won't drink. I promise I won't gamble. No matter where I go, I'll keep this vow.
This is the desk he wrote at, and other memorabilia here. They're first editions of many of his books.
Gonna carry me in my dreams.
Here's this map of his travels that he wrote about in Innocents Abroad, and here's his wife. And these are him and his wife and children. Here's the pipe he smoked, and a picture of him at about the time of his marriage. Now let's look at some of the original illustrations from Huckleberry Finn.
To my wandering I see Athens by moonlight, riding on safe water everywhere I roam.
Here's a painting of Hannibal during the riverboat era. And here's him telling stories out west to various characters. Now we'll look around downtown some before heading out to our bread and breakfast for the night.
Who knows, someday it might just bring me home.
And as always, when Deborah sees an animal, it has to be petted. Now it's time to head out to our bread and breakfast. It'll be out in the country, and we'll have to drive a ways to get there. The Garth family that owned the Garth Woodside Mansion were close friends with Samuel Clemens, and whenever he was in town, he slept here. We're going to be staying in the room he slept in. It's on the National Historical Homes Registry, and we'll be staying on the second floor, the window on the right. In the back is a restaurant, and we'll be now entering the door and looking around inside. The entrance is actually on the side, and soon we're in the central hall and looking around there. On one side is the parlor, and on the other side is the sitting room with its model of the mansion. Then there's a dining room and a modern sitting room if we want to watch TV. But we'll be up on the second floor. This is one of the other bedrooms, and we'll be staying in the Samuel Clemens room, the one he slept in whenever he was here.
Show me someone helping a friend. Show me a broken man standing up again. Show me a smile in ancient eyes, and I'll say
And this is our view out our windows.
is on our
And then it's
side.
time to head to bed for the night, thus ending day 30. We have an early morning.